Thank you all for coming. My name is Walter Schlecht. I'm a librarian here at the Goethe-Institut, New York. This event is the culmination and conclusion of this year's Librarian in Residence program, which we've had since 2008. The Goethe-Institut, New York, together with the Bibliothek und Information International, has always invited a librarian each year to the United States in order to meet with American partners and familiarize themselves with innovative projects in the USA during the course of a short residency. Each year's residency has highlighted a different challenge facing libraries in the 21st century. In response to last year's massive influx of refugees in Germany, the topic chosen was library services for refugees. From a group of highly qualified applicants, Inka Jessen, the director of Stuttgart City Library's 17 branch libraries and mobile library, with a special focus on coordinating the intercultural division, was chosen as the 2016 Librarian in Residence. In the last few weeks, she has visited libraries and organizations in New York City and Hartford, Connecticut, that have found innovative ways to address the needs of refugees and immigrants, and has written about her visits regularly on our Library in Residence blog. Tonight, Ms. Jessen will give a brief presentation on developing programs and collections to address the needs of refugees in Stuttgart. After this presentation, she will be joined by Fred Gitner, Assistant Director of New Initiatives and Partnership Liaison for the New American Programs at Queens Library, and Sonia Lin, General Counsel and Policy Director of the NYC Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, for a panel discussion on the challenges of providing services to refugees and to immigrants. After the panel, we will open up the audience for a Q&A, which will be followed by a reception. Please join me in welcoming Inka Jessen.
I take this microphone. Yes, thank you very much, Walter, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here. And I was asked to show a little presentation about the refugee services we offer in Germany and especially in Stuttgart. And yes, that's actually a picture from Stuttgart of one of our refugee shelters we have there. There are actually living people in containers right now because, as you all heard maybe in the news, only 2015 there were about 900,000 refugees coming to Germany, not only Europe, Germany. And in Stuttgart we have about 3,500 refugees, yes. Stuttgart is a city in southern Germany. Maybe you know Stuttgart also from the Autostadt, we have Mercedes-Benz and Porsche in Stuttgart. And it's quite a large town also. It has about 650 residents. 650,000 residents. Yes, the Library of Stuttgart is the third largest public library in Germany, and it consists of one central library. We've got 17 branch libraries and 2 book buses, and as Walter said, I'm the director of the branch libraries, and additionally, I'm responsible for our immigrant services. That's also a good thing because right now, especially in Stuttgart, many of the refugees are spread around all the districts of the city, and so I have to work with all the branch libraries very close, that they really do good work for all the people who are coming. I also wanted to show something about our central library because it is quite famous right now. It's not the topic, but I think you might be interested. We have got a new building. It's 5 years old now, and we've got some innovative services. Here you can see some pictures. It's actually is a cube, and it's illuminated at night in blue. Blue is our color. And at the left side, you see the so-called heart of the building. It's a 4-floor high room without function. And the people just go in there and they don't know what really to do. But many people also ask, why are there no books? There could be so many books in there, but we have space for the books also. And on the right side there you see the house has 8 floors, so it's really high. And I also have this picture there because it shows that there is the word library in 4 different languages on the surface of the building. It's in German, in English, of course, but also in Arabic. Arabic, not because it's really needed right now also to speak Arabic in Germany, but also because of the famous Library of Alexandria in Egypt. And the last language is Korean because the architect is from South Korea. Yeah, and we've got 4 entrances, and that's also part of our mission to say we are welcoming every people who are coming from all different directions and all backgrounds. So that's also part of the part of the concept. And there you can see the inside of the building. It's really high, and there you see the heart with the 4 floors. And on the heart there is the gallery hall, which has all the fictional literature. And the gallery hall is really famous, and it's become one of the finest libraries in the world by many of the architectural guides, and also the Times Magazine in New York says that it's one of the 20 famous libraries. Yes, I just wanted to tell you that. But right now it's the topic special services for refugees, what we serve in Stuttgart especially. And of course we have internet access for all the people who are coming, Wi-Fi, and also online access with those services like press display with 3,000 newspapers in 60 languages and magazines. And then we also serve books and DVDs with 26 different languages. That's quite a lot for Germany. I saw many libraries here in New York, they have much more different languages, but 26 is also good for Germany. And yeah, we have dictionaries, easy read literature, books, and e-learning classes also for German as a foreign language. We also try to offer information materials in different languages about the library. It isn't easy, we don't have so many translators. And yeah, we have the most things only in English, French, Italian, Arabic sometimes. So we are really working with easy German and with pictographs, because many refugees who are coming to us, they are not even literate. So we also have to show them how the library works and what kind of services we offer. Yeah, and then many school classes come to us who are preparing to go to the real class. The children, they are all going to school and are all going to the kindergarten when they come to Germany. And so the teachers come to us with their classes, and also the adult German classes, of course. And we have a lot of volunteers and mentoring groups who are coming to the library also. So we are doing a lot of tours in easy German also. So that was something which the staff has also been trained in. And then we've got a new project right now. It's called Reading Home. It is a volunteering project. We've got about 250 volunteers who are reading for children in many other institutions, not only libraries. And but those volunteers, they are also reading aloud for refugee children who are coming by an own bus to us. And yeah, we are doing games with them, and that they get a feeling for the language and reading, and it's a really nice project. We also have a very large amount of people who are coming underage, refugee minors, and who are coming without company. And those are getting care from the Children's Protection Services in Germany, but they are living in special homes for them also. So they are living in groups. But these groups, they also have to do something like not only learning German and then waiting to get a job or get an education, but they also want to have fun, and so they can come to the library, where we do also like games and language lab and workshops, like doing a comic about your own history also. Yeah. And we also have free workshops about learning German by playing games. That's also a good thing. It's once a month. And there the people can just come and they don't have to sign in before. And yeah, we are showing them how language games can also help to learn the language. And we had that before, not only for the refugees, but I think it's a really good thing also like political and also for the community that we offer some kind of board where the people can write, I want to learn German, I can teach you how to speak Arabic and all those, so the different exchange languages. And we have offered that for many years now, but it's certain also a good thing for the refugees. And right now we are starting a new e-learning project for refugees, which is called Virtual Classroom. There you can really chat with a teacher and be live, and you can also communicate with other students which are sitting in another library, not at your table, but you can sit there, have your laptop and your headset with you, and then the government is really interested in how our project works, so it's also a granted program. And we have also some theater performances with teen refugee actors in a project which is called Revolution Children. That was about the topic of the Arabic Spring, about all the revolutions which were going on. Yes, and that was the theory. I brought some pictures that you can see how it looks like in real life. That's our gallery hall, and that's one of the theater projects. The actors are standing above, and there on the right you see the crowd with headsets also, and they are really going through the library and acting, and sometimes it looks more like a flash mob, but it's really a planned thing. And that's also an important picture, because on the right you see how the housings look like. Not all the housings, of course, but most of the people who are coming and have to be there and wait for a few months in order to know, do I get the asylum status, can I stay longer? They often stay in such buildings which are also not containers, but are really built very, very fast so that the big amount of people could come in. And this summer, in the holiday season, we drove there with our book buses, and because all the other children in the classes, they were somewhere on vacation, and the refugee children, they had to have to do something, and they were so glad that we came and that we just could play with them, and also the volunteers were reading with them and showing them all the picture books, and you can see on the next slide also how they act. They really try to pronounce it really clear, because the children, they are really small, they don't know any German yet, but they get the feeling, and we do like clapping and rhythm games and all those things, and they are really glad if they can come to the library, and they are driven by an own bus to our locations. And it's not only in the central library and the book buses, but also the other branches, they are starting with it yet. Yeah, and they are one of the volunteers, she tells how to count something. That's another topic also, all our books. It's not only about having the different languages, but also about having the books to learn German and all the classes, the dictionaries, and we don't have this kind of granting system or donation system like it is in the US. So we have money which we can handle with, but we are also we depend also on friends groups. So that's our head of our friends group, and they donated us €5,000 so that we could buy some media, especially which are a little bit complicated to get also, like Arabic or Urdu dictionaries and all those things. So it's really hard to get it, and I think the other librarians know it, yeah. And that's one of our projects, which was with the refugee minors. They really had fun. They did collages with magazines, and yeah, how I said, it is more not only to learn the language, but also to be somewhere else, to be at a safe place. Most of the people are also traumatic, so it's really good that they have someone to talk with also. Yeah, and I think that's a nice picture too. So they also did some kind of television show. And the last one, I chose that because I think that shows so much. It's such a strong picture. That's in the heart of our library, and it's always in the beginning when the group comes. And I think it shows that it's a really difficult situation we are in. It's much work, but if we all stand like hand in hand, we will make it. Yeah, then that was my.
Thank you. Please join me in welcoming Fred Gitner and Sonia Lin to the stage. All right, so as we start, first of all, I'd like Fred and Sonia just to say a couple words about where you work and what programs you provide for refugees and immigrants where you come from.
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Sonia Lin. I'm the General Counsel and the Policy Director at the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs here in New York City. Thanks so much for inviting us to participate in this panel. I was saying before that we got started that actually librarians are my favorite people to work with. I think they really can get things done like nobody else. So it's a real honor to be here. Hello? For those of you who aren't familiar with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, I can tell you briefly a little bit about my office's mission and how we approach the work. We are a unit within the Mayor's Office here in New York City. And we have, I think, a really simple but profound mission, which is to recommend policies, promote programs that advance the well-being of immigrants in New York City. And I think the reason that's such a profound thing to charge an office with doing is because here in New York, a city of 8 million people, there are 3 million foreign-born New Yorkers. So it's about just under 40% of the population who are immigrants. And then when you count immigrants and the children of immigrants here in New York City, that proportion rises to about 60% of the city population. So everybody has a personal connection to immigration in one way or another. I don't doubt if you go back a few more generations, we'll get to nearly 100%. And so, New York City is really a city of immigrants. We in the Mayor's Office in the city, we embrace the vitality, the contributions that immigrant residents bring to our city, and the many talents and skills and flourishing communities that immigrants build. At the same time, definitely it does pose challenges for us in government in terms of effectively delivering services and resources to immigrant New Yorkers. And so we at Moya, really take it as our mandate to ensure that this principle of diversity and inclusion is consistently applied throughout city government. We work very closely with our sister agencies throughout local government to make sure that their approach to delivering services is inclusive and recognizes sort of unique barriers that immigrant residents may face. Anything from language, which is a big barrier for many New Yorkers who are limited English proficient, to other barriers, including sometimes immigration status. There are about 500,000 or so New Yorkers who are undocumented. Another big priority for us at Moya is supporting immigrants in accessing justice and moving along the path towards citizenship and getting the immigration legal assistance that they need in order to do so. We see that this is something that's good for the city, frankly, to have our immigrant residents become more and more stable in their status to eventually become citizens. And we can talk a little bit later, but we work very closely with the library systems on this work. And then the last thing I just want to mention that we do, sort of the last bucket of work, is advocacy. And so we engage in local, state, national advocacy on behalf of immigrants, immigrant rights issues, again with the local government perspective. And over the last couple of years, we've started working very closely with our sister cities throughout the United States, who also see immigrant inclusion, immigrant integration as a major priority for them, and working together with them to weigh in on national issues that are relevant to immigrants. And so we've weighed in on issues related to refugees, issues related to the president's executive actions, and on sanctuary city issues as well. And recently, actually, we've become a little bit even international in scope. I think because we're in New York City, we have the good fortune of meeting a lot of colleagues from overseas and really learning about how much we have in common with local governments abroad as well, who take a similar approach. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in local government right now, as the government entities that are closest to the ground, working with the libraries, working with community partners, we can really, I think, grasp the needs of our immigrant residents in a unique way, and we're eager to bring that perspective to the conversation. So I'll stop there and happy to talk more later.
Good evening. My name's Fred Gitner, as you've heard. So I've been with the New Americans program, which was originally a grant-funded program started almost 40 years ago at Queens Library. Queens is the borough which has the largest and most diverse immigrant population in New York City. About over 50% of Queens residents speak a language other than English at home. People come from about 190 countries, speaking 160 languages. So it's quite a challenge, and it was recognized early on that the library could play a role in assisting people to adapt to life in a new country, but at the same time, we're keeping their traditions and sharing their traditions with the community at large. So that's sort of the guideline we followed over the years, and we're fortunate that on our mission statement in the library, it's specifically stated that the library is to continue working with its diverse and changing population, because obviously there's always new groups coming in and others moving out. You have to and I'm sure this will be brought up later, but you have to really have a handle on demographics as well, knowing the population and who's in the different neighborhoods, et cetera. So we're fortunate that we work closely with the New York City Department of City Planning for those kinds of issues, and we have someone on staff who follows those and creates reports for us. And one of the major things is we're talking about Moya, is partnerships, and we really have many partnerships that have really helped us enhance our services over the years. I think that's all I'll say right now.
All right, so my first question is just, why should libraries even get involved in this issue? Why is the work of other city organizations enough, or is there something special that libraries can contribute that other civic institutions can't? I guess maybe, Inka, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can start, of course. I think particularly in this situation we have in Germany right now, because we had this overwhelming welcoming culture at the first time when the people were coming, and right now it's drifting a little to the right side, so it's not that welcoming anymore. And because there are so many refugees right now, and people get scared a little bit, and so the libraries can really fulfill this work to inform the people about the situation the refugees are, about the war in Syria, maybe also like informing with the books, with events, with lectures, and also being a meeting point. And I think a library is a public institution, and a public institution has to serve all residents in the city, and so welcoming everyone, and also the refugees, maybe. Yeah.
And over the years, if you ask people what is the most trusted place in the community, many people will say the library. They feel comfortable going there. People don't ask you questions when you walk through the door. Whatever your status, doesn't matter. And you can find more and more libraries have really become community centers with the types of programs they're offering, and even the types of materials found in the collections. Over the years, the New Americans program developed much more practical collections, information that affects people's day-to-day lives, and not only literary works, etc., and broaden the films that are available. It's so that the people coming in, especially too in a city like New York, where in many times when you do come to the library, you might find someone who speaks your language, and you can open up to them and get additional assistance. So I do think that the library, especially partnering with other agencies, both city and community-based, can really play an important role in people's lives. And every day, it seems, at least at Queens, I don't know, we find out about another program the library has decided to start, such as now getting your high school diploma at the library, which is something brand new. I just heard the latest program is a program where inmates at Rikers Island will be able to have, through video teleconferencing, visits with their families, storytelling, and things like that. So again, a lot of this has to do with finding the right grant funding, but the library is also a place that likes to experiment with new ideas and ways that can improve people's lives.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I really want to underscore Fred's point about partnerships. And I think from our perspective at Moya, partnering with the libraries has been just a dream. And I think, a lot of sort of our best practice lessons learned have been about finding the right partners, and oftentimes those right partners are the libraries. For our municipal ID program, for example, ID NYC, which launched almost 2 years ago. From the very outset, the 3 public library systems in New York City were our partners, and they've been really critical for the success of that program. You can go to the Flushing Library, you can go to the Jamaica Library, you can go to the main branch of the Brooklyn Public Library, Midtown Manhattan, in the New York Public Library system, and apply for an ID NYC card. It takes 10 minutes. There's a whole application set up. The libraries have been unbelievable partners in this program. You can use your card as a library card across all 3 systems. It's very much, we've learned that it's absolutely true that libraries are places where immigrants already are. They're already trusted. They're using the libraries for any number of reasons, because they have become these community centers that Fred describes. And so, our approach is, well, why don't we go to where the people already are? We're not going to build something else for them. We go there, and I think we've seen that it really works.
I guess that brings me to the question, as a difference, I guess, between US and Germany. How differently are public libraries perceived, both by the public, the German public and the US public, but also by immigrants who come to the country or refugees?
Yeah, I learned quite a lot about the differences of German and American libraries also, and how they are recepted in the public. And especially with immigrants, most people don't have the idea, oh, you can go to the library and get help in Germany. And in the US, that's the first thing I hear, that most of the immigrants and also people who just want help or have a question, or you just want to have somebody you can talk to, they go to the library here. And in Germany, we still have a reputation of being a cultural institution, of serving with books and being like a station where you can check out media. Of course, many know that we have internet access, that we have all the books where you can learn German, but that we have so much other events and classes and e-learning tools and databases, most of the people don't know it. So we really have an image problem in Germany, sadly. But we are really working on it, and that's about partnerships, and especially the local partnerships and being in the districts and the neighborhoods. That really works right now, and we are thinking that's the immigrant issue right now. It really helps us maybe also to get seen somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, because we always, when we talk to our community library staff, we always emphasize about getting outside of the library and walking around your neighborhood and trying to see what kinds of new restaurants have opened, what kinds of newspapers are on the newsstand, and then also trying to locate community-based organizations, either if they might have time to go to, or to let us know in the central library, so that we can pay a visit and talk to the, actually that's how many years ago we started our directory of immigrant serving agencies, was by using the yellow pages first, but then going out with questionnaires and trying to let them, different organizations, tell us what are the main needs of your particular community. So, and then trying to develop with, sometimes it would work, sometimes not, but a dialogue, and trying to maintain that, and trying to then work together to develop some sort of program that would benefit, have mutual benefit for the library and for the community.
Another question I have is, would you, we're using the umbrella terms refugees and immigrants, but of course many have different statuses. As you mentioned, some are undocumented in New York. In Germany, there are a lot of people who have applied for asylum but may not receive it for 1 or 2 years. And what are the particular challenges of serving populations that are either waiting on asylum and haven't officially received their status, or in the often case in New York, people who don't have papers and are working on getting papers? Inka, would you like to start?
Yeah, that was also a question which I was coming from Germany to the US in order to ask you, how do you deal with this topic? Because it's really interesting that you do so much with immigrants and also with the refugees who have this resettlement program. But in Germany, many people come who are not illegal, but they come without the papers and without the status that they really know they can stay longer than 2 years or something. And in Germany, we try to solve these problems by giving them the access to internet, even though they don't have the real papers yet. Many came also to shelters where they didn't have an address yet. And in Germany, if you want to have a library card, you have to show an address. And that's some kind of bureaucratic maybe, but yeah, we had some issues we had to really solve to get them to our service. Yeah.
So I guess it's a little, first of all, it's a little bit different because in a city like New York, of course we have refugees, but it's a very small percentage because to try to, the expense of resettling a refugee in New York City, as you can imagine, you've rented apartments and things like that. It's not really the best place. Though over the years, it's been different. I mean, many years in the 70s, 80s, even into the 90s, you had Russian refugees coming that were being resettled by a Nyana organization and Hayes and things like that. But really, currently, it's a very small, even in New York State, it's a very small percentage. But on the other hand, the undocumented population is larger. But as I mentioned before, we don't ask people's status. If you want to enroll in an English class at the library, there's no question about are you documented or undocumented. There are other questions about your educational level, about your, possibly that if it's a grant-funded program, sometimes about your income, because the grant says you can only serve low-income students. But not about your status. And even now, I know that I think we have a grant right now, perhaps it's through you, the one with CUNY, and to serve students who are just missing the educational requirement for DACA.
Yeah.
Right. So again, obviously you have to ask some questions for that. But there are things you can do while you're an undocumented immigrant to improve your status that will help perhaps change things if executive action continues or if comprehensive immigration happens.
Yeah, I think the question is a really good one because, here locally, we don't control the immigration laws. Immigration laws are a federal matter. We definitely advocate for reform. We would love to see that. I think it'd be very good for New York City, but that's not something that we're in control of. And I think from our perspective, our immigrant neighbors and friends and colleagues are just our neighbors and friends and colleagues. And it's our responsibility in government to treat everybody as New Yorkers. We are a government for all New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status. Most immigrants in New York City are actually citizens. They're naturalized citizens. There's a sort of large number, about 1 million or so of permanent residents, and then about 500,000 or so undocumented folks. And as Fred mentioned, we don't have really significant numbers of people who've been formally designated refugees and gone through the official resettlement process because of the cost of living. But there are quite a number of people who come to New York seeking refuge of some kind. They might not have been formally designated a refugee under international law or federal law, but they're here seeking asylum. They've are escaping persecution of some kind in their home country. And I think, we, try to work with our partners on the ground to be able to build bridges with these folks so they can access the sort of essential services that they need, healthcare, getting into schools, being able to report a crime. This all takes a lot of bridge building, a lot of work with our community partners. I think we've definitely learned that we can't do it alone, but there are things that we can do in collaboration with others. And I think the ID program is one really good example of that. It's been tremendously successful. There's people who have it all over the city, pretty much every zip code, but with particular concentration in certain zip codes where we know there's a real density of immigrants. We don't ask about immigration status for the card, so we don't know. It's a New York City card. It just says you're a New Yorker. It doesn't say anything about your status. But we have seen that it's been successful in these immigrant neighborhoods, and I think that's very much due to the partnerships we've had with the libraries and with others.
One of Sonia, earlier you mentioned advocacy, and I think that brings to another question. We've talked about engaging immigrants and refugees in libraries, but how also do you engage people from not from an immediate immigrant background with your services and make sure that they also understand the issues and are also, involved in the conversation?
Well, that's a good question. I think that I think we've definitely been thinking about this particular question and sort of engaging all stakeholders. I can speak about it with respect to sort of particular programs or initiatives that we're launching, because yes, absolutely, we want to partner with the libraries, we want to partner with the community groups so that we reach the immigrants that we're targeting, but we also need to pay attention to other stakeholders, right? And so the example I keep going back to, because it's probably the biggest and most well-known from my office, is the ID card program. And from the very outset of that program, we were talking to our sister agencies, to the New York Police Department, to the Human Resources Administration, to federal partners, to brief them about the program and let them know, hey, we're doing this. This is why it's, why we think it's good for the city. This is why we think it might be beneficial for you. Will you collaborate with us on it? Will you weigh in and help us design the strongest program that we can? And we found that, people are very receptive to that. Our various partners and collaborators, if they see something that's beneficial to them, they will help us make a stronger program. And so the police department is a really good example. We work with them very closely from kind of the beginning design phases to make sure that we were building a really strong card that was fraud-proof or fraud-resistant. I guess you can never be entirely 100%, but that it was robust and it had really strong program integrity measures. And as a result, the New York Police Department accepts it as photo identification. And so if somebody is stopped on the street for a minor offense, that's, they can get a ticket for, they can present their ID and walk away with a ticket instead of having to go back to the precinct. And so, I think we've worked together with people like that. Not to go on and on, but I think, another example of kind of engaging other audiences, recently with the UN General Assembly and the President's Summit on Refugees and Migrants in September, we had an opportunity to talk to a lot of new audiences that we haven't talked to previously, and really talk about just our approach, and the need to emphasize diversity and inclusion and build bridges among immigrants, refugees, native-born communities. And it was really a really great experience, I think, for us in the office to kind of engage new audiences with this message, and we found it to be really resonant at this time when a lot of people are very rightfully concerned about the humanitarian crisis globally. And it seemed like it was a welcome addition to that conversation to just say, as local government, we think diversity is a great thing.
Well, I guess one area that I think that the library gets involved in is through our cultural programming. I would say that that's the type of programming that brings in, we aim sort of for 50% from a particular target community. Let's say we're having a program of Russian music or something like that, so that, and 50% from the community at large. And it depends a little bit on, which community you're having it in, but that usually works pretty well. And it's a way of people, we find that people in New York City in general are genuinely curious about other cultures. I mean, no matter where you're going, you run into someone on the subway or in your building or whatever, and instead of walking, you may not converse with them all the time, but you say, gee, if I saw a program, related to that culture, someone in my building is from there, and maybe I should, find out a little more about it. It's just interesting. We got some funding recently to have a pilot program of teaching Urdu language at the library. And so we were kind of nervous at the beginning, Urdu, who's going to come, how many people are going to come to this? Where it's going to be in Flushing, so that, and so the first class was last night, and there were 9 people there, and there were several Chinese people. There was one gentleman was very funny. He was a taxi driver, and he said that he has so many Pakistani taxi drivers, and he wants to be able to say something to them. So, yeah, right. Yeah, in his, when they stop for a break or whatever. There were several Americans of course. And then there was one woman, I'm not sure what country she was from, but she was really talking more about sort of being part of the global community. She said, I've taken your Korean classes that you gave last semester, and now I can read some of the signs in Flushing. So now I thought, Urdu, that might be interesting. So I mean, it's really the kinds of people that you find out in the community. It's very heartwarming, actually, and that's New York. So.
Yeah, I think that really sounds interesting because we are right now also starting as a kind of conversation group. It's a language cafe for Turkish learners, so only for women, so that the Turkish women can teach the German Turkish learners and be the teacher then, and not only the one who is not seen so much otherwise. So that's also one thing I'm really excited to see how it works. But I also think that we have in Germany so many volunteers who are engaging in all the immigrant services, and also especially in Stuttgart we have so many housings, and every housing, every shelter has its own friends group. And all these friends groups, they are really engaging voluntarily and going to the library also and talking also in their neighborhood about the situation the refugees are in. So they are really good multiplicators to the public also. And in the library staff is also very engaged in these friends groups and goes to local meetings and all those things. And I think that's the most important part also, to talk about it and to be a meeting place also. Yeah.
And then one more question before I open it up to the audience. Oftentimes in situations where people are afraid, maybe of immigrants or of a situation that's unfamiliar to them, oftentimes a conflict might arise. And particularly now, in sort of both the US and Germany are going through politically uneasy times that are very infused with fear. And how do you deal with situations or conflicts that arise from either a cultural clash or just in general, a general mood where there's more hostility towards immigrants or refugees or another population? Would you like to start, Inka?
Yes. Right now, I see that the situation has really changed. If you saw our customers a few years ago, there were not so many people who had like Arabic background or came from Northern Africa, from Africa. We really have a lot of people who are coming by their own, and especially men. And first, it was an issue also for the staff, for the women who were working there, and they first had a little problem to help also, because there were so cultural different backgrounds. But we did so much training also with the staff, de-escalation training, intercultural trainings, and all those things, so that I think the library workers, the staff is really engaged and they really want to help. And the customers, they really come to us and ask if we also serve the refugees, if we also help them. So they are more interested in if we also do something. And but of course there are also discussions about the whole political situation, and therefore I think we, as every time if some political discussion plops up, we have to serve with our information material and our books. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. So over the years that I've worked at the library, from time to time, there have been movements. There was the English-only movement for a while. People were putting up billboards, I know, in Queens, saying, make English the official language of the United States. So we would get, every so often, I would get phone calls. Usually it was just as I was leaving for vacation or something. But anyway, I would get phone calls from an irate customer saying, I was just in my library today. Nobody speaks any English. What are you going to do about it? kind of thing. And usually, people like to vent, but once you came down to the issue was she just felt the library didn't have enough English classes to serve all these people. By the end of the conversation, I invited her to volunteer for the program. We also had a situation where actually from particular immigrant groups, they felt that their culture was not being represented. So, for example, one woman called and said, I've lived in my neighborhood for I don't know how long, and now I come to the library and all I see is Chinese books, nothing else. And so it turned out that this woman was from Italian background, the Italian community. That was an earlier immigrant group, and that she didn't speak much Italian, but she wanted her children to speak Italian, and there were no Italian children's books. So we started a collection. So, so you have to try to discuss, to try to diffuse the situation, try to be calm about it, yeah. And, usually, it would work out. I mean, we obviously don't have the huge influxes that you're having.
But you also do have many immigrants, so
I
would not make such a big difference between immigrants and refugees. It's only that we have this situation that most of them have not the real housings or have not these clubs, also these cultural associations, and with many of the immigrants in Stuttgart we have a big amount of people. We also have about 38% of people coming from a migration background in Stuttgart, and that's besides the refugee. So,
quite high, yeah.
And they are settled really good, and they have their neighborhoods and everything. And I think that's so the topic right now. Therefore,
Yeah, I think. I think definitely it's. You see sort of more xenophobic messages, including here in New York. I think maybe a little bit less so than in other places around the United States, but I wouldn't say it doesn't exist. And I think you also see some anti-Muslim sentiment and just sort of fear of difference. I don't know that we're entirely immune here, and I think it is definitely a challenge. I think I don't have the same perspective as Fred on at the community level or the neighborhood level, but I think we definitely are concerned about it, and I think our approach to this kind of sort of hateful rhetoric that can very easily lead to violent action, threats of violence, is to use our convening power to bring people together. Again, this idea of bridge building, to help build bridges among communities, and have people come together to think about shared strategies in light of a more uncertain political climate for immigrants and refugees. I think we've done a few events over the past few months, which I think have been really nice. In June, we had it was the first time that our office had done this, and we did it in collaboration with a few other city agencies. We had an enormous community iftar to break the fast during Ramadan. It was towards the end of Ramadan, and we had an enormous community table that was set out on, I think, East 11th Street in the East Village. And there were over 400 people who came of all faiths and backgrounds, including just people who were walking by and saw this really lovely table outside in the evening and sat down together. There's some speeches, but there was also just sort of conversation and community and sort of more understanding, I guess, of cultures. And it was a really nice event, and I think it happened on the same evening that the Supreme Court issued its non-decision in the executive action case. And so that was a very tough day and really disappointing for so many immigrants across the country. And then to end that day with this really beautiful kind of celebration of togetherness was a very, I think, it's definitely a very nice thing for us in the office, and hopefully was sort of helpful for those who came as well. But we're looking for more ways to create spaces for people to come together and kind of develop their understanding of each other.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? You want to do shout sign?
I think you tried to ask this, and I want to ask again, how to bring the non-immigrant and non-refugee population to the table where they're playing a more active role and or being educated about these issues.
Yes, I think the non-immigrant people in Germany, most of them are really helpful, and they are engaged in all these volunteering groups, and most of them, they are really helping, and by being mentors, maybe like in such programs as helping a whole family and going with them to the theater, to the library, and all those things. But there are of course people who are critical, and I don't see them so much in the library, but we see them right now demonstrating nearly every week in Dresden, in one of the cities we have in Eastern Germany, where it's really, really bad. And we do a lot of journalistic topics at the TV. I see so many discussions in TV shows about this topic. And therefore, we really try to have also lectures about it and books about it in the library and talking to them. And we also have these groups, or some, it's an event which is called, I don't know if you know it also, maybe if it also works here, like Borrowing a Person. There we have...
the Human Library.
The Human Library, we also have that in Stuttgart, and that's always a good, a really good event where you can talk to people you wouldn't dare to, which have different backgrounds or have a special disease or are disabled or something, and I think that's a good thing to do, but it's only a small amount of people you reach, of course. Yeah.
I think another way too is on a more one-to-one basis is through the ESOL classes at the library, because there we use a lot of trained volunteers as conversation leaders, and so that many different topics, do come up where the immigrant has a chance to express issues that have come up for them, and so it's sort of like a guided discussion. And most of the many of the volunteer leaders are either retired people, retired teachers, or sometimes college students or professionals, so that again, there's some more exposure, not just to your own community, but to a larger community.
And I think at another level, I think there's work to be done in sort of the education space as well. Actually, our colleagues at the City Human Rights Commission just launched this really great campaign. I think right now it's on social media, and it'll be going wider in the spring. I guess the tagline is "I am Muslim NYC," and they're really great images that show the diversity of people of the Muslim faith, and show them in context. And I think there's a lot more work that we can do along those lines of sort of raising public awareness and educating people generally about diversity in our communities.
I forgot something maybe, because we had that issue also with all our cultural institutions in Stuttgart especially. We have a certain circle where we meet with all museums and music schools, theaters, and we had 2 workshops also in order to think about what can culture do in order to promote the welcoming culture and also to serve the refugees and the other ones, and that they can meet each other. And that was really a good workshop, both of it, and we had so much brainstorming and ideas, and now we are right now we are trying to do guidelines about cultural refugee work, and especially for Stuttgart and the bigger region. So I hope that it's not only that it's not going to be only theory, but that the people who are reading the guidelines then also can do something and really make theater projects and making music and all those things, and that brings people together also. Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
Hello. So obviously, Fred and Sonia, you guys seem to represent a successful partnership between like a library and a city agency. Inka, I'm wondering if maybe that's something that you at the Stuttgart Public Library have been doing some of in light of the refugee crisis especially, or if it's something that maybe you've seen more of in your residency here. I know you just talked about sort of the cultural institutions getting together, so that's a kind of alliance, obviously. But I'm wondering if the government in like Stuttgart or at the state level or federal level sees the benefit of libraries in this situation.
I don't know any library in Germany who has the same services as it is right now in the New York public libraries, as the legal help and the lawyer service, medical assistance sometimes also. So all these governmental services, we have them all. And we have a really good social security system also in Germany, but most of them are municipal institutions. And in Stuttgart we have a good institution also. It's the Welcome Center. And that's quite new also, not all cities have it, and in this Welcome Center, there all people can go which have come which are coming to Stuttgart, and there are also people who are working just 1 year maybe in Germany and then going back, so it's really from the refugee to the professor who is there and wants only to know where to get some other help. And but the libraries aren't yet the place where all these services are promoted, but we are the place where we navigate the people to those services, and we are working very strong with some of these municipal institutions, also the children's service, of course, and we have good cooperations, but most of the people, they are taken care by like the charity organizations, and they also navigate them to these services, and they know where to go, so they mostly don't need the library, but I think it would be really good to be a place also for this, for these services. Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone. Thank you for your attention and for being here, and thank you to our panelists for the lovely discussion. I'd invite you all to our bar to continue the discussion and have a glass of wine. So thank you all for coming.